The story of Ilse Koch, the notorious witch of Buchenwald, is a dark and twisted tale that sends shivers down the spines of those who learn of her brutal acts. As the wife of the Buchenwald concentration camp commandant, Ilse Koch played a significant role in the camp's sadistic operations. This video delves into the life of Ilse Koch, exploring her heinous crimes, the trial that led to her conviction, and her ultimate demise. Although her story may be difficult to stomach, it is essential to remember the horrors of the past in order to prevent them from recurring in the future. Ilse Koch was born on September 22, 1906, in Dresden, Germany, as Ilse Kohler. She grew up in a relatively humble and working-class family. Little is known about her early life and upbringing, but it is believed that she did not exhibit any significant signs of deviant behavior in her youth. After completing her basic education, Ilse worked as a bookkeeper and eventually joined the Nazi Party in 1932. In 1936, Ilse married Karl Otto Koch, a high-ranking SS officer who later became the commandant of the Buchenwald concentration camp. This marriage marked the beginning of her involvement in the atrocities committed within the camp. It was during her time at Buchenwald that Ilse's sadistic and perverted tendencies began to surface. The Buchenwald concentration camp, established in 1937, was one of the largest and most infamous concentration camps in Nazi Germany. It was initially built to incarcerate political prisoners, but later expanded to include Jews, Romani people, and other undesirables according to the Nazi regime. Throughout its operation, the camp was known for its brutal treatment of prisoners, with thousands dying from torture, medical experiments, and forced labor. As the wife of the camp commandant, Ilse Koch held significant power and authority within Buchenwald. She often participated in the abuse and torture of the prisoners, exhibiting a morbid fascination with their suffering. Her brutal behavior earned her nicknames such as the Witch of Buchenwald and the Beast of Buchenwald. Despite her cruel and sadistic tendencies, she was also known for her beauty, which only added to her chilling mystique. Ilse's husband, Karl Otto Koch, was eventually arrested and executed by the SS in 1945 for corruption and other crimes. However, Ilse was not directly implicated in her husband's offenses at the time. As the tide of World War II turned against the Nazis, Ilse fled Buchenwald with her children before the camp was liberated by the Allies in April 1945. She was later captured by American troops and imprisoned, awaiting trial for her crimes. Ilse's trial took place in 1947, where she faced charges for her heinous acts at Buchenwald. She was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison. However, her sentence was later reduced to 4 years on appeal. Upon her release, Ilse was rearrested by West German authorities and retried in 1951. This time, she was convicted once again and sentenced to life imprisonment. While serving her sentence, Ilse's notoriety grew as she became a symbol of the horrors perpetrated by the Nazis during the Holocaust. She was often discussed in the media, and her name became synonymous with evil and sadism. However, her life would soon come to an abrupt and violent end. In 1967, Ilse Koch was found dead in her prison cell, having hanged herself with bedsheets. Her brutal death was a fitting end for a woman who had caused so much pain and suffering to countless innocent victims. Despite her demise, the memory of her heinous acts and the impact of her crimes continue to serve as a stark reminder of the capacity for cruelty within the human soul. Buchenwald concentration camp, located near Weimar, Germany, was one of the largest and most notorious concentration camps established by the Nazis. In operation from 1937 to 1945, it was a place of unspeakable suffering and death. Over its 8-year existence, an estimated 56,000 to 60,000 people perished within its walls, victims of the brutal conditions, forced labor, torture, medical experiments, and mass executions. Initially, Buchenwald was designed to hold political prisoners, particularly those who opposed the Nazi regime. However, its scope expanded over time, and the camp became a place where Jews, Romani people, Soviet prisoners of war, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, and others deemed undesirable by the Nazis were systematically imprisoned, abused, and killed. The camp was also a site of forced labor, where prisoners were made to work in inhumane conditions, often to the point of death. Buchenwald was divided into multiple subcamps, each with its own administration and purpose. Some were used for slave labor, while others were used for medical experiments or as sites for mass killings. Regardless of their designated function, all subcamps were characterized by the same barbaric treatment of their inmates. The daily life of prisoners in Buchenwald was marked by terror, deprivation, and suffering. Upon arrival at the camp, they were subjected to a brutal selection process, where those deemed unfit for labor were either killed immediately or sent to extermination camps. Those who survived this initial culling were then subjected to grueling forced labor, working up to 12 hours a day under the watchful eyes of the SS guards and their vicious dogs. Malnutrition was rampant in Buchenwald, with prisoners receiving meager rations that were insufficient to sustain them. Starvation, coupled with the back-breaking labor, led to the rapid deterioration of the prisoners' health, resulting in widespread illness and disease. The camp's medical facilities were woefully inadequate, and those who fell ill were often left to suffer or die. Torture was a common occurrence in Buchenwald, with prisoners regularly subjected to brutal beatings, whippings, and other forms of physical abuse at the hands of the SS guards. Some prisoners were used as subjects for sadistic medical experiments, including those conducted by the notorious SS doctor Karl Vernet, who performed gruesome surgeries on homosexual prisoners in an attempt to cure them. Other experiments included infecting prisoners with various diseases to study their effects, subjecting them to high-altitude or freezing conditions, and testing the limits of human endurance. Executions in Buchenwald were carried out through various means, including hanging, shooting, and lethal injection. One particularly horrifying method of execution was the use of a mobile gas chamber, disguised as a shower room, which was used to asphyxiate prisoners en masse with poisonous gas. Mass graves and crematoria were used to dispose of the countless bodies of those who succumbed to the camp's brutal conditions or were murdered outright. Despite the pervasive atmosphere of despair and suffering in Buchenwald, there were also acts of resistance and defiance by the prisoners. Underground organizations were formed, clandestine newspapers were published, and secret communication networks were established. These acts of courage and resilience offered some hope to the prisoners and helped to preserve their dignity in the face of overwhelming brutality. As the Allies began to close in on Germany in the final months of World War II, the SS attempted to cover up their crimes by evacuating the remaining prisoners from Buchenwald. This led to the infamous death marches, where thousands of prisoners were forced to walk long distances with little food, water, or rest. Many succumbed to exhaustion, illness, or were killed by the guards along the way. Those who survived the death marches faced further challenges as they were transferred to other concentration camps with even more deplorable conditions. On April 11, 1945, Buchenwald was liberated by the U.S. Army, and the world would soon come face to face with the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. The emaciated and traumatized survivors bore witness to the atrocities committed at the camp, and their testimonies would later become essential evidence during the subsequent war crime trials. In the years that followed, Buchenwald served as a potent symbol of the Holocaust and the unspeakable cruelty that had been perpetrated by the Nazis. The camp's remaining structures were preserved as a memorial and museum, ensuring that the memory of the victims would not be forgotten. Today, the site continues to educate visitors about the horrors of the Holocaust, while also serving as a stark reminder of the depths of human depravity and the importance of remaining vigilant against the forces of hatred and intolerance. The story of Buchenwald and its victims, like the story of Ilse Koch, must never be forgotten, so that the lessons of history can continue to inform and guide future generations. Ilse Koch's notoriety as the Witch of Buchenwald was not without cause. As the wife of the camp commandant, she wielded significant power and used it to inflict suffering upon the prisoners. Her particular brand of cruelty was marked by perversion and sadism, traits that would come to define her legacy as one of the most reviled figures of the Holocaust. One of Ilse's most infamous acts was her obsession with human skin, particularly that of prisoners who had distinctive tattoos or markings. She was known to have ordered the execution of such prisoners, only to have their skin removed and preserved. It is alleged that she used these human skin samples to create a variety of items, including lampshades, gloves, and book covers. While some historians have debated the veracity of these claims, there's no denying that Ilse's fascination with human skin was a perverse and chilling aspect of her character. Ilse also had a penchant for sadistic forms of punishment, often involving whippings, beatings, and other physical abuse. She was known to personally carry out these punishments or to order others to do so on her behalf. Prisoners who found themselves at the receiving end of Ilse's wrath were often left with severe injuries, both physical and psychological. The atmosphere of terror that she fostered at Buchenwald was palpable, and her presence alone was enough to instill fear in the hearts of the prisoners. Aside from her own personal acts of cruelty, Ilse was also instrumental in the establishment and maintenance of the brutal conditions within Buchenwald. As the wife of the commandant, she had significant influence over the administration of the camp and the treatment of its prisoners. She was known to have encouraged and supported her husband's policies of torture, forced labor, and extermination, thus contributing to the overall climate of brutality and suffering that prevailed at the camp. Ilse's sadism was not limited to her interactions with the prisoners. Her personal life was also marked by a series of affairs and liaisons with SS officers and other camp personnel. It is believed that she used her beauty and sexual allure to manipulate and control those around her, further consolidating her power and influence within the camp. Her callous disregard for the sanctity of marriage and her willingness to exploit others for her own gain only added to her infamy. One of the most striking aspects of Ilse Koch's cruelty was the apparent pleasure that she derived from the suffering of others. It is said that she would often watch the brutal punishments and executions of prisoners with a gleeful fascination, a testament to the depths of her depravity. This enjoyment of others' pain set her apart from other perpetrators of the Holocaust, who often justified their actions as a matter of duty or necessity. In Ilse's case, it seemed that her sadism was driven by a twisted sense of personal satisfaction. The extent of Ilse Koch's cruelty and sadism was brought to light during her trial, where survivors of Buchenwald testified to her brutal acts and her role in the camp's atrocities. The evidence presented against her painted a harrowing picture of a woman who not only participated in the horrors of the Holocaust, but relished in them. It was this disturbing aspect of her character that made her stand out among the countless other war criminals who would face justice in the years following World War II. The story of Ilse Koch is a stark reminder of the capacity for evil that can exist within the human heart. Her perverse cruelty and sadism continue to shock and horrify those who learn of her actions, even decades after her death. The legacy that she left behind at Buchenwald is one of immense suffering and pain, a testament to the dark side of human nature that must never be forgotten. As we reflect on the life and actions of Ilse Koch, it is important to recognize the broader context in which her cruelty took place. The Holocaust was a time of unimaginable suffering and loss, with millions of innocent people subjected to persecution, torture, and death at the hands of the Nazis. While Ilse's actions were undoubtedly heinous and deserving of condemnation, they were also part of a larger system of violence and hatred that gripped Europe during this dark chapter of history. By examining the depths of Ilse Koch's sadism and the horrors she inflicted upon the prisoners of Buchenwald, we gain a deeper understanding of the human capacity for cruelty and the importance of remaining vigilant against the forces of hatred and intolerance. It is only by remembering the past and acknowledging the actions of individuals like Ilse Koch that we can hope to prevent such atrocities from occurring again. In the end, the story of Ilse Koch serves as a grim reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the potential for evil that lies within us all. Her brutal legacy stands as a testament to the need for constant vigilance and a commitment to the principles of justice, compassion, and empathy. The perverted cruelty of Ilse Koch must never be forgotten, and her story should serve as a warning to future generations about the horrors that can arise when hatred and sadism are allowed to fester and grow. The Buchenwald trial, which took place between April and August of 1947, was a series of military tribunals conducted by the U.S. Army in the immediate aftermath of World War II. These trials aimed to bring justice to the perpetrators of the atrocities committed at the Buchenwald concentration camp, including Ilse Koch, who had become infamous for her sadistic and cruel behavior. The proceedings, held in Dachau, Germany, attracted international attention and highlighted the need for accountability in the wake of the Holocaust. Ilse Koch was among the 31 defendants charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity during the Buchenwald trial. She faced a litany of accusations, including the torture and abuse of prisoners, the collection of human skin, and the incitement of other camp personnel to commit atrocities. The trial provided a platform for survivors of Buchenwald to testify about the horrors they had experienced at the hands of Ilse and her fellow defendants. The testimonies of the survivors painted a chilling picture of Ilse Koch's cruelty and sadism. Former prisoners recounted instances of brutal beatings, whippings, and other forms of torture carried out by Ilse herself or under her direct orders. They spoke of her fascination with human skin and her alleged collection of macabre souvenirs made from the bodies of the victims. These testimonies offered a harrowing glimpse into the depravity of Ilse Koch and the suffering endured by the prisoners at Buchenwald. Throughout the trial, Ilse maintained her innocence and claimed that she had no knowledge of the crimes committed at Buchenwald. She attempted to distance herself from the actions of her husband, Karl Otto Koch, and other camp personnel, arguing that she was merely a housewife with no involvement in the administration of the camp. This defense was met with skepticism by both the prosecution and the court, given the overwhelming evidence of her active participation in the atrocities. The Buchenwald trial concluded on August 14, 1947, with the conviction of 22 defendants, including Ilse Koch. She was found guilty of participating in a common plan to violate the laws and usages of war and was sentenced to life imprisonment. The verdict was seen as a victory for justice and a necessary step in holding the perpetrators of the Holocaust accountable for their actions. However, Ilse's story did not end with her conviction. In 1948, General Lucius D. Clay, the military governor of the U.S. occupation zone in Germany, reviewed her case and controversially reduced her sentence to 4 years in prison, citing a lack of direct evidence linking her to the collection of human skin. This decision was met with outrage by many, who saw it as a miscarriage of justice and a failure to hold Ilse accountable for her heinous crimes. The controversy surrounding Ilse Koch's sentence did not go unnoticed by the West German authorities. Upon her release from prison in 1951, she was immediately rearrested and charged with crimes committed at Buchenwald during the period not covered by the U.S. military tribunal. A new trial was held in the West German courts, and in 1954, Ilse was once again convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. Ilse's second conviction and life sentence marked the end of her legal odyssey and her attempts to evade responsibility for her actions. She would spend the remainder of her life behind bars, a fitting punishment for her sadistic and cruel behavior. The Buchenwald trial and Ilse's eventual conviction served as a testament to the importance of pursuing justice for the victims of the Holocaust and holding those responsible for such atrocities to account. The case of Ilse Koch and the Buchenwald trial also highlighted the complexities and challenges of seeking justice in the aftermath of a large-scale atrocity like the Holocaust. The process of collecting evidence, identifying perpetrators, and prosecuting those responsible was a monumental task that required significant resources and international cooperation. The trials also raised difficult questions about the nature of guilt, responsibility, and the appropriate punishment for those who had participated in such horrific acts. Despite these challenges, the Buchenwald trial and the conviction of Ilse Koch served as an important step in addressing the crimes of the Holocaust and providing a measure of justice to the victims and survivors. The trial underscored the need to hold individuals accountable for their actions, regardless of their rank or position within a broader system of oppression. Moreover, the trial's proceedings and verdicts contributed to the development of international law and the establishment of legal precedents for prosecuting war crimes and crimes against humanity. The lessons learned from the Buchenwald trial and other post-war tribunals would later inform the creation of the International Criminal Court and the adoption of the Genocide Convention, which aimed to prevent and punish acts of genocide and other crimes against humanity. In the end, the Buchenwald trial and the conviction of Ilse Koch represent a significant moment in the pursuit of justice following the Holocaust. While no punishment could ever fully atone for the immense suffering and loss caused by individuals like Ilse, the trial's outcome demonstrated the importance of confronting the horrors of the past and working to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. The legacy of the trial and Ilse Koch's conviction serves as a reminder of the need for vigilance, accountability, and the pursuit of justice in the face of hatred and cruelty. Of a large-scale atrocity like the Holocaust, the process of collecting evidence, identifying perpetrators, and prosecuting those responsible was a monumental task that required significant resources and international cooperation. The trials also raised difficult questions about the nature of guilt, responsibility, and the appropriate punishment for those who had participated in such horrific acts. Despite these challenges, the Buchenwald trial and the conviction of Ilse Koch served as an important step in addressing the crimes of the Holocaust and providing a measure of justice to the victims and survivors. The trial underscored the need to hold individuals accountable for their actions, regardless of their rank or position within a broader system of oppression. Moreover, the trial's proceedings and verdicts contributed to the development of international law and the establishment of legal precedents for prosecuting war crimes and crimes against humanity. The lessons learned from the Buchenwald trial and other post-war tribunals would later inform the creation of the International Criminal Court and the adoption of the Genocide Convention, which aimed to prevent and punish acts of genocide and other crimes against humanity. In the end, the Buchenwald trial and the conviction of Ilse Koch represent a significant moment in the pursuit of justice following the Holocaust. While no punishment could ever fully atone for the immense suffering and loss caused by individuals like Ilse, the trial's outcome demonstrated the importance of confronting the horrors of the past and working to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. The legacy of the trial and Ilse Koch's conviction serves as a reminder of the need for vigilance, accountability, and the pursuit of justice in the face of hatred and cruelty. Ilse Koch's imprisonment, following her conviction and sentencing, was fraught with controversy and debate. Her case became a focal point for discussions about justice and punishment in the aftermath of the Holocaust, as well as a symbol of the challenges faced by the international community in coming to terms with the atrocities committed during the war. After Ilse's initial conviction by the U.S. military tribunal and subsequent sentence reduction by General Lucius D. Clay, many felt that justice had not been served. The public was outraged by the leniency shown to someone who had been directly involved in the brutalities of Buchenwald, and they questioned whether the legal system was adequately addressing the crimes of the Holocaust. This anger was further exacerbated by the fact that Ilse was released after serving just 4 years of her commuted sentence. The West German authorities shared this sense of dissatisfaction with Ilse's punishment, and their decision to rearrest her immediately upon her release was seen as an effort to rectify the perceived miscarriage of justice. The subsequent trial and conviction in the West German courts was viewed as a more fitting punishment for her crimes, with Ilse ultimately being sentenced to life imprisonment. However, the controversy surrounding Ilse's imprisonment did not end with her second conviction. Throughout her time in prison, she maintained her innocence and continued to garner attention from both the media and the public. She became a figure of both fascination and revulsion, with many struggling to comprehend the motives behind her sadistic actions and the enjoyment she seemingly derived from the suffering of others. Some commentators and observers questioned whether life imprisonment was a just punishment for Ilse Koch, given the scale of her crimes and the immense suffering she had caused. They argued that her continued existence behind bars served as a reminder of the horrors of the Holocaust and the inability of the legal system to fully address the magnitude of the atrocities committed. Others, however, saw her imprisonment as an important symbol of accountability and the need to hold individuals responsible for their actions, regardless of the passage of time. While Ilse Koch remained in prison, debates about the appropriateness of her sentence and the broader issue of justice for the victims of the Holocaust continued. These discussions touched upon the challenges faced by the international community in grappling with the legacy of the Holocaust, including the difficulty of prosecuting and punishing those responsible for such widespread and systematic crimes. The controversy surrounding Ilse's imprisonment highlighted the complexities of achieving justice in the wake of the Holocaust and the ongoing struggle to ensure that the lessons of history are not forgotten. Ilse Koch's time in prison came to an end in 1967, when she died by suicide. Her death marked the conclusion of a life marked by cruelty, sadism, and infamy. It also served as a reminder of the importance of addressing the past and ensuring that the memory of the Holocaust and the atrocities committed at Buchenwald and other concentration camps are not lost to history. The controversial imprisonment of Ilse Koch remains a significant chapter in the broader story of the Holocaust and the pursuit of justice in its aftermath. Her case serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the capacity for evil that can exist within individuals. It also underscores the need for vigilance, empathy, and the ongoing pursuit of justice in the face of hatred and cruelty. The lessons learned from Ilse Koch's life and imprisonment must continue to inform and guide future generations as they confront the challenges of their own times. Ilse Koch's life came to a tragic and brutal end in 1967 while serving her life sentence in prison. The circumstances surrounding her death remain a subject of speculation and debate, as some view her demise as the inevitable consequence of a life marked by cruelty and sadism, while others see it as an unfortunate outcome of a deeply flawed individual whose actions were beyond comprehension. In the years leading up to her death, Ilse's mental and physical health had begun to deteriorate. Prison authorities noted her increasing isolation and withdrawal from her fellow inmates, as well as a decline in her overall well-being. Her situation was further exacerbated by the intense scrutiny and notoriety that continued to surround her, even decades after the end of the war. As a result, Ilse found herself facing both the physical and psychological effects of her incarceration, as well as the weight of her past actions and the revulsion of the public. On September 1st, 1967, Ilse Koch's life came to a brutal and tragic end when she died by suicide in her cell at Eichach Women's Prison. Her body was discovered hanging from a noose fashioned from a bedsheet, a stark reminder of the tormented existence she had led during her final years. The news of her death was met with a mixture of relief, sorrow, and fascination, as many struggled to reconcile their feelings about her legacy with the reality of her demise. Ilse's death represented the final chapter in a life that had been marked by unimaginable cruelty and sadism. It was a fitting, if tragic, conclusion for a woman who had caused so much pain and suffering during her time at Buchenwald. In the eyes of many, her suicide represented a form of poetic justice, an act of retribution for the countless lives she had destroyed. For others, however, her death served as a reminder of the profound impact that individuals like Ilse can have on the world, and the need to remain vigilant against the forces of hatred and cruelty that continue to exist. The brutal death of Ilse Koch also raises important questions about the nature of justice and the effectiveness of punishment as a means of addressing the crimes of the Holocaust. While some argue that her suicide was a just outcome for a woman who had inflicted so much suffering on others, others contend that her death represents a failure of the legal system to fully hold her accountable for her actions. The fact that Ilse took her own life, rather than facing the consequences of her actions, has led some to question whether her imprisonment was an appropriate or effective form of punishment. In the years since Ilse Koch's death, her story has continued to captivate and horrify those who encounter it. Her sadistic actions at Buchenwald, her subsequent trials and imprisonment, and her eventual suicide have served as a potent reminder of the capacity for evil that exists within human beings, and the need to confront and address the horrors of the past. As we reflect on the brutal death of Ilse Koch, it is essential that we not lose sight of the broader context in which her actions took place. The Holocaust was an unprecedented act of cruelty and barbarism, perpetrated by countless individuals who, like Ilse, inflicted unimaginable suffering on innocent people. It is crucial that we remember the lessons of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against the forces of hatred, intolerance, and cruelty that continue to persist in the world today. Furthermore, Ilse's death serves as a reminder of the complexities and challenges involved in seeking justice for the victims of the Holocaust and other large-scale atrocities. Her case highlights the difficulties of addressing the actions of individuals who participated in such horrific acts and raises important questions about the nature of punishment, responsibility, and the role of the legal system in providing a sense of closure and justice for the victims. As we grapple with these issues, it is essential that we continue to reflect on the lessons of the past and work to ensure that the memory of the Holocaust and the atrocities committed at Buchenwald and other concentration camps are not lost to history. The legacy and impact of Ilse Koch's actions extend far beyond the confines of the Buchenwald concentration camp and her subsequent imprisonment. Her sadistic behavior and the horrors she inflicted on the prisoners of Buchenwald serve as a haunting reminder of the depths of human depravity and the capacity for cruelty that can exist within individuals. By examining the actions of Ilse and others like her, we gain a greater understanding of the importance of remaining vigilant against the forces of hatred and intolerance that persist in the world today. Ilse Koch's story has also had a significant impact on the field of Holocaust studies and the broader understanding of the events that took place during this dark period of history. Her actions at Buchenwald, as well as the trials and controversies surrounding her imprisonment, have provided valuable insights into the complexities of human behavior and the motivations that drove individuals to participate in the Holocaust. As a result, her story has become an essential part of the larger narrative of the Holocaust, serving as both a cautionary tale and a call to action for future generations. The legacy of Ilse Koch's actions also extends to the realm of education and public awareness. Her story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and scholarly articles, helping to raise awareness about the Holocaust and the atrocities committed at Buchenwald and other concentration camps. Through these various forms of media, her story has reached countless individuals, serving as a stark reminder of the importance of confronting the past and learning from the mistakes of history. One of the most lasting impacts of Ilse Koch's actions is the role they have played in shaping the development of international human rights law and the prosecution of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The trials that followed the Holocaust, including the Buchenwald trial in which Ilse was a defendant, contributed to the establishment of legal precedents for prosecuting such crimes and paved the way for the creation of the International Criminal Court and other institutions dedicated to the pursuit of justice for the victims of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity.